Cheers, afternoon everyone, and thanks Alice for that glowing introduction. I have got the post-lunch snooze slot, so yeah, if that introduction, that glowing introduction, doesn't keep you awake and keep you interested, then hopefully the applause at the end of it will at least wake you up in time for the next presentation. So yeah, Simon and I, partner and head of geospatial at Carter Jonas. Here to talk about how the platform using Esri GIS has completely revolutionised our asset management, our property management and asset management. But before we get into any of that, I just spend a little few moments talking about who Carter Jonas are, and most importantly, the geospatial team and the part it has to play. So, Carter Jonas, relatively known, I hope, but if you didn't know much about it, hadn't heard of us before, we're a multidisciplinary property consultancy company. We've been going for around 160 years, and we are involved with anything and everything to do with land and property management, whether that's large infrastructure projects, renewable energy, residential and commercial property management, residential sales. We're involved with a whole breadth of it. And our aim is to provide simply better property advice to our clients, and by giving them data-driven insight to make that decision, the strategic decisions about their property. So the geospatial team plays an integral part in all of this. At the end of the day, if you can't map it, you can't manage it. Okay, and we do this in several different ways. We have a full spectrum of geospatial services that we provide, both to support the business and also our clients. We have a measured survey team providing traditional land and measured building surveys, topo surveys, UAV, drone, photogrammetry services, 3D modelling. Our mapping and analysis team providing multi-criteria site finding, site appraisal services, and traditional map production to help support property management. And lastly, we have our digital property management team that are involved with the full spectrum of data management and visualization, from capture and collection through to conditioning and validation, integrating that spatial and non-spatial data, and then making it available through and visualizing that through apps and dashboards and other systems, and integrating it with business services. So, property management at Carter Jonas, we're here to look at. We manage over 10,000 land, residential and commercial properties for clients such as HS2, National Highways and Homes England. This requires approximately 25,000 inspections a year to be conducted as part of that management process. Okay, covering everything from compliance inspections, property condition, and forestry and agriculture. So this afternoon, I'm here to talk about two use cases. The first, how we use GIS to improve and streamline what was a fairly manual inspection process. And then the second is that showing the flexibility of the Esri platform and how we customize that to open it up to help support our forestry team and the supply chain. And for both scenarios, we'll look at the benefits that this brought to Carter Jonas, supply chain, and the overall client. So the problem then, 25,000 inspections a year on behalf of our clients, and we traditionally used a very manual inspection process. Often meant filling in forms using paper and pen, taking pictures on phones, and then 4 to 6 hours in the back office, stitching all that together, putting data into different spreadsheets, pushing that forward, get into property management systems, okay, taking far too much time, and it resulting in inconsistencies with how a property was inspected, but also how the data about it was collected and how it was, and there wasn't any standardization to that. It made it very difficult to access, query, update, or reuse any of that data for any different purpose, pulling reports from different systems, trying to combine it all. And data that was siloed across property documents in one office, another office, depending on where the inspection had taken place, whether they were property documents such as gas safety certificates, or whether it was rent and arrears information. And so we had looked at digital survey apps in the past, and property management apps in the past, and there hadn't been any consistent uptake across the business. And mostly because there was a sort of lack of usability. They were difficult to update. They were costly to update, with cost involved every time you wanted to make a change. But also they outputted to PDF, which, as we all know in this room, is where data goes to die. So, fortunately though, the Carter Jonas geospatial team were brought in, and we took the problem, we mapped the processes out, we looked at the reporting requirements, and we got feedback from the surveyors as to how the flow of the inspection might work, and we combined different types of inspection and forms to have a look at how we could streamline the process. Now, it was obvious to us that they needed a GIS, and they needed an app that was allowed them to collect that in the field. And Survey 123 was the app that was easily the obvious choice. And for those not aware, and hopefully we're all by now, Survey 123 is a mobile desktop or browser-based application that allows the users to create complex surveys using simple Esri, Excel template, or straight from the web browser with the help of AI, as we saw this morning. And we created different types of inspection report template depending on the type of property, whether it was a residential inspection, whether it was a commercial property inspection, or whether it was a piece of land that needs to be inspected. Asset managers could then go out, inspect the property consistently, capturing the data in a standardized way, using it online or offline, dependent on their mobile data connectivity. And then all this information could then be fed up to a centralized client database. From here, it could then be combined with other property data, whether that was all the inspection and compliance certificates, gas safety, the sort of asbestos management plans, if that was needed, and also all the rental information, the tenancy information, the arrears, any arrears that might be on that property, that came from the property management database, could all be connected, linked using unique property references. That was fine, that was great, but the asset managers needed an app that they could use to update all this information, to keep it live, to have that live version. And so what we did, we used the Esri JavaScript API, and we created a custom app, map-based app, that was very easy for them to pick up and use, select the property, search the property, select it, and up came the form that they'd been used to filling out in their original process. Exactly the same look and feel, and they could just update all the fields in exactly the same way that we're used to doing it. And that really, really narrowed the barrier to adoption. So once they got that, all this time, because the data is captured centrally, it can be reused, repurposed across multiple different use cases. We created a client dashboard, using Esri operations dashboards, okay, and that was the interactivity of that, the ability to search and categorize the data, use category selectors, allowed our clients to instantly understand all the issues that are associated with their property, whether that was at the single property level or across the whole portfolio, giving them actual insight into how they could, and allowing them to make the strategic decisions. We could also use that same data in different web applications to give our asset managers different views dependent on what they needed and how they needed to use it. Or we could put that through into Power BI to allow our contract management team to report in other ways, and also to, again, using that standardized set of data. So let's take a look at some of the applications and go through some of the benefits. So on the right-hand side, you've got examples of the Survey 123 app. Everything from property condition, the state of the walls, what they were made up of, can easily be captured, simple multi-choice selections. If you want to illustrate any of this, you can take a photo, straight away capturing the condition of the survey, or if it's a hazard that's been identified, risk scoring it, and then also helping people visualize by taking a photo. Collecting meter readings, all of this could be streamlined into the single app. And that could be collected, and that could be used online or offline, whether you're in the middle of the field or in a built-up area. And that one then allowing you to, the asset managers, to go out, collect that data, and then either upload it when they got back to the office, or if they were in their local Starbucks. So it will help them collect that data in a standardized way, consistently and automatically. And of course, all this data was at the back end was all being centralized to be allowed it to be used for all the different reporting purposes that we needed it to be. So the app at the back is an example of the originally titled Survey Manager app, as we called it. And again, very simple map interface that allowed those asset managers to instantly get up and running with the workflow. Moving on to the dashboard then. Again, Esri Operations Dashboard, going from single portfolio, a single property level, all the way up to full portfolio. We created themed tabs that you could navigate to different thematic data sets coming through, whether it was when the next inspections were due, when the compliance information was going to run out, or accessing the documents that are all hosted in a SharePoint site. And we linked all this together using Microsoft Azure single sign-on to help to allow only the people that needed to gain access get access to that information. And the integrations that it has with all the different Microsoft apps by linking SharePoint, Power BI, and the rest of it. But most importantly, from a client's perspective, it allowed them to actually understand what was going on with their property, with their whole portfolio. It allowed them to understand and have assurance that the contracts are being managed effectively. We are meeting our KPIs as a client, as a supplier, and that, but most of all, that their property was being managed in a safe and compliant way. So now let's move on to the second scenario, and this is how we used the flexibility of the Esri platform to help us adapt that workflow that I've just been through, but in a slightly different way to help support our forestry team. And this team's requirements are slightly different. They still needed to have the ability to collect in a form-based way. They need to collect information about the trees, the type of trees, the condition of them, whether they needed remedial works or not. Okay, and they still had all that information to put together in the back office, but they then had to turn that around and give that all information back out to the contractors, who would then go out, price up the work. If they got awarded it, then go out and do the work and do the remedial works. But they needed the ability for two things. The functionality of a web map, okay, to be able to zoom in, zoom out, visualize the individual trees, combined with that form collection that Survey 123 brought them. So we solved that situation by giving them ArcGIS field maps alongside their Survey 123. And by using custom URL parameters, we were able to when they zoomed in on field maps, selected the individual tree, they could then directly open up the form in Survey 123, fill out the inspection, knowing that all of that data was linked to the correct tree with the proper tree tag, so that could be retrieved later on. Getting the best of both worlds. So there we have, at the front, Esri field maps, on the left-hand side, Esri field maps. By using that combination of field maps and Survey 123, they were able to conduct those tree inspections, save all that information back up to the network, and again, they needed an app themselves to update and keep all that information updated. So again, we produced another app for them that allowed to separate those trees out, understand, carry out filtering of them to understand when things need to be re-inspected, what remedial works needs to be done, export that data out and pass that to the contractors. Contractors thought it was great because the first time they had all the information they needed. They had the number of trees that needed to have remedial works. They knew the areas that they needed to resource against, and they could very quickly price against that. That comes back, they were awarded the contract, and they go out on site. And this is where we gave them their own version of Survey 123. So they had Survey 123 on their own phones, whether it was Android or iOS, doesn't matter. And they could log in with an ArcGIS login, access all the information that needed, select the tree tag, see all the inspection information that had been collected before, identify remedial works, carry that out, and then they were able to quickly and easily complete the work, take some photos to prove it, and upload it back. All of this time, all this information was going back and forth, the client getting constant updates of how the inspection process was going on, how the remedial works was going on, so they knew that the contract was being managed consistently and meeting the KPIs. But most of all, being managed safely. So, looking at the benefits of collaboration, I've been through quite a few of them already, but from a contractor's perspective, they're getting all the information they need. They're up front, at the centre, they know how to resource against it, they know the work required, and they can easily prove that they've done the work, and the forestry team's getting the understanding that that work's been done, they can sign that off, and the contractor gets paid. From a forestry team perspective, it's great. They can track all the progress of that working through. They can easily see that that's been completed, sign off the work for payment, but also know that same information is being passed back up to the client, so they've got the latest info. And from then the client's perspective, they're getting that increased visibility again. They're understanding that everything's been managed in a safe way, and that they can just monitor it, and they've got all the information they need when they want it. So this has been so successful that we are now looking at how we can grow and expand this capability. And part of that has been looking at how we identify trees in the first place. So we've been doing some work with the Esri pre-trained deep learning modules, segmentation model, and we're starting to use our own drone imagery to apply the model to that imagery, and we'll start with automated tree segmentation mapping. Combining that with additional ArcGIS workforce and other mobile worker apps such as Quick Capture, being able to assign different asset managers to different areas, different contractors to different areas, and also the greater integration with all the Microsoft technologies, allowing us to feed those data sets into the business applications that our users or asset managers are used to using, whether that's SharePoint, Teams, or Excel. So to summarize then and bring it all together, we can look at how GIS has been successful not only for Carter Jonas, but also contractors and clients. For Carter Jonas, we have the efficiencies that digitising this process has given us, from reducing that back office time from 6 hours to around 45 minutes, centralising our data to allow us to conduct analysis and accurate up-to-date reporting, allow us to report back on stuff that we perhaps struggled to before, such as capital expenditure, and identifying that quickly and earlier. But but the most important part has been bringing all of that information together, all that disparate information together, so it can combine that consistent one version of the truth for our clients. From the contractor's perspective, it saves them a whole host of time in understanding the problem, resourcing against it, and they can get paid quicker. And for the client, they get that increased visibility over the whole portfolio, and bringing all of that together, but knowing that the whole property management is being carried out in a safe and secure way. And I can't overestimate how great bringing in the GIS platform has been in this process, and it's created a win for Carter Jonas, our contractors, and our clients as a whole. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you very much for listening. I'll hand that back over to Alice.